a decade ago, the city I live in, Stockton, California, they embarked on a redevelopment project in our downtown. Our downtown it has a beautiful characteristic. There's a waterfront in our downtown, so that the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta kind of snakes in from the west side, and there's a little finger of the delta that comes right up into our downtown. And it's a really beautiful feature of our city. About 10 years ago, our city embarked on a redevelopment project for that part of downtown, and they built a small stadium arena, indoor arena. They built a baseball park. They built a brand new marina, and they built a promenade or a fancy walk that went almost all the way around this water feature in our downtown. And it was very beautiful. It was a beautiful bar. I've been to all of that. I've been to the ballpark. I've been to the indoor stadium. Been to a hockey game and graduation at the indoor stadium. I've walked the promenade. It was a very beautifully designed and constructed project. I actually worked a little bit on the construction of the promenade when I did some construction staking and some boundary surveying for that project. So it was a beautiful project. It also cost our city about $135 million, which is a huge amount of money. And it's one of the reasons why Stockton was one of the largest cities in the United States to file for municipal bankruptcy. So thankfully that's over. We're out of bankruptcy now. Our city's out of bankruptcy, but that was a very traumatic experience for us. But after the project was constructed, as beautiful and well designed as it was, I really watched major portions of that area that had been redeveloped decay. I watched the urban decay occur, not so much on the north side of our waterfront where the ballpark and the arena, the stadium were, but on the south side of the waterfront. And I've been back a couple times to visit that part of the waterfront, and was really saddened and surprised at the level of decay. And I thought, there's some lessons there for other cities, and for land planners, both in private and public practice, and real estate developers. There's some lessons there about redevelopment projects and thinking beyond the initial kind of ribbon cutting when the project opens. And so I wanted to share some of those lessons. So, what was part of the challenge that we faced in Stockton with this waterfront redevelopment? Well, part of the problem is a large chunk of that waterfront is actually vacant land, which is surprising. That's probably not common in a lot of downtowns, but on the south side of the waterfront, as you move west towards the freeway, there's a big chunk of vacant land. So it's just open, flat land that basically grows weeds. So that was definitely a challenge. That the waterfront is located near a major freeway interchange, so it's where a crosstown freeway intersects with Interstate 5, and just because of the location of the freeway interchange, we have a lot of homeless people that live in that kind of freeway interchange area, because there's right away there that's not thoroughly maintained by the state, and it's also near some services for the homeless that are kind of by our downtown. And so, there's a major problem with homelessness in that, in all of our city, but in that part of the city especially. And then in the actual water itself, in the marina and in the other parts of our waterfront, we have a couple problems. We have toxic algae blooms that kind of turn the water a really bright lime green and it's actually poisonous. You can't swim in it. And because of the way the water feature's shaped, it kind of winds into the downtown where it kind of dead ends, and most of our winds here, prevailing winds, blow to the east from the west to the east, and so invasive water weeds and trash basically gets blown into the water feature and gets trapped. And so you can imagine that is a pretty potent combination. If left alone, those factors could create a major eyesore and major urban decay, and that's what's happened. That's what's happened to part of our waterfront. So let me just tell you about a little bit about my last visit to the waterfront and what I saw. So when I went to the waterfront, the first thing I noticed is there's these really beautiful lights along the promenade, and they'd all the lights had been broken open, and the copper wire had been stripped out of the lights. So none of the lights worked, and they'd been vandalized. There were trash heaps, just piles of trash from the people that had been living and camping illegally down at the waterfront. There were illegal campsites all over the waterfront. There was graffiti and vandalism on the sidewalk, and on the railing had been vandalized, and the lighting, as I mentioned, had been vandalized. And not only was it no longer a beautiful place, but it was certainly not what I would consider a safe place. There's no way I would take my wife or my family to the waterfront, to the promenade, in this especially on the south side of the promenade. It just was a dangerous place. I even felt nervous there as an adult man in the middle of the day, grown man in the middle of the day. So, really sad situation. And we did not, as a city, take real good care of our $135 million investment. Like I said, I understand why we ended up in that situation, a lot of challenges in that particular area. But I thought, why not share the lessons of our redevelopment of our waterfront with others so they can potentially, hopefully, avoid some of the same mistakes in their redevelopment projects, especially of their downtown. So what are some of the lessons that our redevelopment project on the waterfront has for other cities and for land planners and land developers? So I wrote down six lessons. So here's the first. When you're going to have a project like that, long-term maintenance is essential, and you got to find a way to pay for it. So you need to have a mechanism in place to pay for the maintenance of your infrastructure after it's built. And we didn't do a good job of that, right? I imagine the city is probably paying out of its general fund to deal with those issues that we have on our waterfront. And as those of you from local government know, getting money from the general fund always has its challenges. And we probably should have put a dedicated funding source in place. Ideally, your ballpark and your marina and your indoor arena or stadium generate enough revenue to pay for the maintenance. And I don't think that was the case in our city. But you need to have some kind of funding source. Number two, security, also essential, especially in a place like Stockton. We do have a huge homelessness problem here. Part of that is because we have a problem in California building enough housing. That's one reason. You got to have security. If you don't have security, people are going to vandalize. They're gonna loot. They're gonna pile their trash, and they're gonna make places unsafe. So, really, that promenade should have had 2, 4, 6, security guards on site at all times. There should have probably been cameras installed, and none of that happened. Third lesson from our waterfront redevelopment is that vacancy is a plague that brings us a whole set of problems. I really think if the city had allowed that land at the waterfront to be developed, and there would have been landowners there with a stake in the condition of the waterfront, I think we would have avoided a lot of those problems. So one of the major problems we had with our waterfront is it just had a large chunk of vacant land. Now, I realize that's not a problem in most downtowns, but if you're going to go in and redevelop an area, you need to think about what's our plan for the vacant land. How do we fill it up? Because if you leave land vacant, it just opens the doors for vagrancy and a lot of other problems. The fifth lesson, I think, overall lesson, neglect destroys value and reduces your return on investment. Without a doubt in my mind, that project was well designed, well conceived. It really improved our waterfront, and we just didn't take care of it. We did not take care of the investment that we made as a community in that part of our town, part of our city. And then finally, the sixth thing is geography matters, and it can't be ignored. There were some unique geographical challenges to maintaining a beautiful waterfront that we had. The location next to the freeway, not only the freeway, but Mormon Slough runs through Stockton. It's kind of a dry slough most of the year, and that's a major conduit that homeless people and others use. They walk up and down that slough to get to different parts of the city. And then you've got that prevailing winds that blow the trash and the weeds and kind of bottle it up in that part of the waterfront there. And so there were some challenges there that we could have potentially foreseen in the design of that redevelopment project, and I feel like we failed to anticipate. So, what are some best practices, given those lessons, what are some best practices for your downtown redevelopment project? I'm going to give you 3. Okay, these are lessons from Stockton, California, and they were expensive lessons. So I hope you benefit from them. Number 1, fill the vacant spaces. You need some vested stakeholders there, people that care about whether or not that redevelopment project succeeds. They care about security, they care about maintenance, and they are going to be vocal when things start going downhill. So fill up your vacant spaces, number 1. Number 2, fund that maintenance and security. Have a dedicated funding source, and make sure that your project gets paid for. And then finally, don't ignore geography. Geography is really important. Every project has a geographic context, and you don't want to ignore that. You want to make sure that you take the geographic context of your project into account when you design your project.